The biggest construction mistakes in the world. From an architectural mistake that ended up creating one of the most iconic landmarks globally, to a tragic incident where a building collapsed in China, starting ambitious construction projects can unveil extraordinary engineering and architecture achievements. But sometimes things don't happen as planned in construction. In construction, engineering, and architecture, even a tiny mistake can lead to big challenges and surprises. Some mistakes are more than just a little glitch, but they can cause serious damage. Now, let's look at some of the biggest mistakes ever made in construction. Number 12. Tacoma Narrows Bridge in Washington. In Washington, USA, there was a big bridge called the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. It was built in 1940 and was the third largest bridge of its kind. It was special because it was the first bridge to use a certain kind of support for the road called plate girders. The bridge cost around $6 million to build, which is like $1 billion today when we consider how things cost more now. But sadly, this expensive bridge only stood for 4 months and 7 days. The reason it fell down was because it had a big problem with how it reacted to the wind. Even in regular winds, it would wobble and bend. When the wind got really strong, the bridge couldn't handle it. On the day it collapsed, the wind was blowing at 19 meters per second. The bridge twisted and turned because of something called aeroelastic flutter, and then it fell into the water. Luckily, no one was hurt when the bridge fell. Number 11. The Aon Center. The Aon Center, originally known as the Amoco Building and built in 1974, is a really tall and cool building in Chicago. At first, people were amazed by its simple shape, and the fact that it was covered in marble from Italy, making it the biggest marble-covered building in the world. But there was a problem. The marble was too thin, so it started to crack. Pieces of it even fell off and landed below. This was dangerous, so they had to fix it. In the 1990s, they decided to replace the fragile marble with stronger granite. This fix cost a whopping $80 million. Number 10. The Walkie Talkie turned Walkie Scorchy. In the heart of London, there's a big building called 20 Fenchurch Street. People call it the Walkie Talkie because it looks different. It was finished in 2014 and cost more than £200 million to build. But there was a big problem. The building has a glass front that curves, making it act like a giant mirror. This mistake meant that, for about 2 hours every day, the building reflected the sun onto the street below. The sunlight was so strong that it caused a lot of heat, as hot as 72 degrees Celsius. Because of this, things started going wrong. Tiles on the building cracked, carpets got burned, and even paint and cars started melting. People gave the building a new name, the Walkie Scorchy. To fix the problem, they had to put a special sunscreen on the curved part of the building, but fixing the mistake cost another £10 million. Number 9. Sydney Opera House. The Sydney Opera House is famous worldwide, but it went through a lot of problems during its construction. Even though it looks amazing, it's considered one of the world's failed projects because it took much longer and cost a lot more money than originally planned. The plan was to finish building it in 4 years, spending about $7 million. However, it ended up taking 14 years and costing a total of $14 million. That's a big difference. The trouble didn't stop there. When the opera house was finally done, the musicians had a hard time hearing their music properly. This was because of mistakes in planning and construction that messed up the acoustics, or how sound travels in the building. To make things even worse, there was a mix-up in where they put the opera house and the stage production halls. Fixing these mistakes cost an extra $300 million. Number 8. Songu Bridge Collapse. In 1994, something very sad happened in Seoul, South Korea. The middle part of the Songu Bridge fell into the Han River, and 31 people lost their lives. The bridge was supposed to hold cars that weighed up to 36.3 tons, but some cars that were much heavier, 47.3 tons, used it regularly. Because the bridge had to handle more weight than it was designed for, and there were mistakes in how it was built, it collapsed. After investigating, the government had to pay $185,000 to the families of the people who died and $2 million to fix the bridge. They found out that some important repairs and checkups were not done like they should have been. Number 7. Lotus Riverside Disaster. Lotus Riverside is a group of homes in Shanghai. In 2009, one of its tall buildings fell down. Luckily, it didn't cause more buildings to collapse. People left the area in time, but sadly, a construction worker died in the accident. The building fell because it was made poorly and didn't follow the right construction rules. The builders were accused of caring more about finishing quickly than doing a good job. The people who built the homes had to pay a lot of money. They had to give $30 million to the people who owned the homes and pay for fixing everything. It's a sad event that reminds everyone how important it is to build things properly and follow safety rules. Builders should always care more about doing a good job than doing it fast. Number 6. Poang Department Store. The Poang Department Store in Seoul was supposed to be a small building with 4 floors, but it became a big problem because people rushed to finish it quickly. Just like a similar situation in the US at the Hyatt Regency Hotel, South Korean construction companies were in a hurry because foreign companies couldn't help, and there was a big rush to build things for the 1988 Seoul Olympics. Originally, they planned to make the Poang building a simple 4-story home. However, in 1987, the person in charge suddenly decided to change it into a large department store. They messed up the structure by taking out some important parts to make room for escalators. The construction team used concrete slabs that weren't strong enough, making the building unsafe. The building opened in 1990 and attracted many people, but because of its structural problems, it collapsed on June 29, 1995. Cracks appeared in the building's ceiling months before it fell down, but the people in charge didn't do much to fix it. Even though there were warnings, they didn't close the building and only told people to leave 5 minutes before it collapsed. Number 5. Hyatt Regency Hotel. The big Hyatt Regency Hotel, with 40 floors, started being built in 1978 and needed to be done quickly because of money problems in the construction world. Even though it looked cool when it opened in 1980, there was a big problem with the design. The lobby had these fancy walkways made of steel, glass, and concrete on different floors. People liked to gather on these walkways, especially for events. Then, on July 17, 1981, during a crowded event, something terrible happened. The walkway on the 4th floor, which was supposed to hold up both itself and the one on the 2nd floor, suddenly fell down to the lobby. This was because the design was changed during construction and the 4th floor walkway couldn't handle the weight. An investigation found that if they had checked things properly before building, they would have seen the problem. Number 4. The Leaning Tower of Pisa. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is famous because it doesn't stand straight. This happened because it was built on ground that couldn't support its weight. The problem became clear while it was being built. In the 1800s and 1900s, people tried to fix it. They worked hard and managed to make the tower tilt less, from a big lean to a smaller one, about 3.9 degrees. The tower's base wasn't strong enough, causing it to lean as it went up. To rescue it, builders tried different things in the 1800s and 1900s. Surprisingly, their efforts did make the tower lean less, reducing it from a tilt of 5.5 degrees to 3.9 degrees. Now, the tower is not in immediate danger, and people are still working to keep it safe. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is a special building that teaches us about fixing mistakes and preserving important things from the past. Number 3. Savar Building. In 2013, a really tall building in Savar fell down and more than 1,100 people died. At first, the building was made without permission, and later it was changed from a regular store place to a factory without telling anyone. They even added 3 extra floors without asking. Also, the materials used to build it were not good quality. Because of all these problems, the building collapsed, causing a big disaster. This sad event shows how important it is to follow the rules when building things and to use strong materials. It's a lesson about keeping everyone safe by doing things the right way. Number 2. The Molasses Disaster. In January 1919, something happened in Boston. A super big tank filled with molasses, a sticky syrup, broke, and all the molasses spilled out. Imagine a wave made of molasses, like a giant sticky flood. This molasses wave was so strong that it broke a train track and lifted a whole train off the ground. The wave also knocked down buildings nearby and hurt a lot of people. Sadly, 21 people died and 150 got hurt. It was a really big disaster that everyone in Boston remembered. This accident showed how dangerous things can happen when something goes wrong with big tanks of stuff. Number 1. Ibrox Stadium. Sometimes, sports stadiums have had problems with their structures, like what happened at the Hillsborough disaster in 1989 and the collapse of Ibrox Stadium in 1902. Ibrox Stadium, home to Rangers FC, was originally called Ibrox Park. It followed the design of other Scottish stadiums at the time, and people thought it was safe. The stadium wanted to host more football matches and finals, so they added a big terracing in 1902 to fit 36,000 more people. This terracing had wooden planks on an iron frame and got approval from local authorities. On April 5, 1902, during a Scotland versus England match, part of the terracing collapsed, and about 125 people fell 50 feet. People argued about why it happened, blaming the wood quality or the design. The wood supplier even went to trial for homicide, but was found not guilty. They removed the wooden terraces in 1910, but hired the same architect to expand the stadium in the same year. That's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for more upcoming videos.